Well, it's been 2 years since I've had this same problem with the crank no start condition, but this time I've got the P0301 error code, which is a number one cylinder misfire. So the only thing that can be causing that, or one of three things, is no spark, no fuel, or no compression. I did a compression check and found that I had zero compression in cylinder one. I was able to get it started after a strong backfire. Once I cleaned the cap and rotor again, it did fire up, but that strong backfire, I was afraid it might have bent some valves or even destroyed a piston or caused some major engine damage. So I removed the valve cover. I wanted to see, the actual springs moving, see if there's any damaged springs. After doing a compression check on cylinder number one and had zero compression, I decided to bring the cylinder to top dead center to do a leak down test, and using a screwdriver, I ended up bending the screwdriver and cracking this piston and scarring the piston as well. You can see in this photo. Bad idea. So I started to dig in and I removed the intake manifold here, as you can see. Also, I had bad intake gaskets where you can see cylinder number 1 and 5 and also 6 were pretty much completely plugged. So that was a major problem. And that might have been why the engine backfired in the first place. So with that strong backfire, then it also blew out the valve cover gaskets. You can see on the right side here that the valve cover gaskets just kind of hanging out there, and it created all kinds of running problems, idling issues after that. So I thought maybe the head gasket was bad, maybe it was warped or ruptured or something, but that all looked okay. But folks, what I'll tell you is when I put this at top dead center to get to do my leak down test, boy, don't ever use a screwdriver, because I actually probably helped kill this engine. I think it's just that the rings were worn out, but if you look, you can just make it out. Let me see if I can get some light on the subject here. Hang on. Well, this confirms what the bore scope results showed, is that there is definitely a crack in the piston. Well, here she is. My new 4.3 liter Vortec engine, and actually used for me, but right out of the junkyard. So anyway, a little dusty. I'm going to have to do some conversion though. The manifold is not the same. This actually came off of a Silverado 2003 model. So it's got a little bit of a different fuel injection system in it. So I'm probably going to have to swap out at least the top part of the manifold so that it incorporates only the one fuel line. This has the fuel regulator built into the spider, where mine is in the fuel pump. And so that would need to be changed out. Before this engine goes in, though, it's going to need to, the intake manifold, at least the upper portion, will need to come off anyway in order for me to fit that into the van. So, but right now I think I'm going to take a look at the spark plugs, see how this engine was burning, and maybe, maybe it'll give me some indication of the health of this engine. They told me at the junkyard that this only has 71,000 miles according to the VIN of the vehicle it came out of. Spark plugs all look good. They all burned evenly, so that's very good. And here's an ad that shows the vehicle that the engine came from. Paint looks pretty good on it. It looks like a pretty nice looking vehicle. Yeah, it looked like it had been wrecked, and totaled, but overall, it looked like a pretty good looking vehicle. So I'm hoping that everything works out with this, and we'll cross our fingers. Okay, I put all the spark plugs back in. I've got my snap-on leak down tester here. Now, this is not the conventional one that most people are used to seeing. It's an older one, but it has one gauge. So you have input, which is this hose here, and you adjust it by this dial here, where you regulate the amount of air pressure. So you want about 100 pounds of air pressure going into the engine. So I've got it at top dead center on the mark. You can see it, maybe you can't, but there's the mark, and there's the alignment mark. So we got it at top dead center. I'm going to use my compression gauge, which is the hose to the compression. I took out the Schrader valve here, so it just that's just so continuous air can blow through it. And then I'm going to set this up, and we'll see what we get on number 1 cylinder. So stand by. Okay, I'm getting about 14% leak down on this number 1 cylinder. I'm holding it. It isn't at top dead center according to the mark, but that's where it likes it. So I'm going to say, well, that looks pretty good at 14%. You got to expect a little bit of leak down. Nothing is ever zero, especially on a used motor. So on to cylinder number, 3. So we'll try that. Okay, I'm doing cylinder number 3, and I've calibrated this to 0. Maybe a little off. There we are, 0. And now I just got to hook this up to here. So I don't know if I'm at top dead center on here, but I'm gonna check it out. We'll see. Now you can see a little bit of air escaping from the crankcase there, or from the, that looks like the valve cover. So, but it isn't much, because this is showing about 10% leak down, which is better than cylinder number 1. So, and that's stopped now. So it just depends on where I've got the crank at this point. But that I believe is top dead center. Okay, so moving on to 5. Okay, this is cylinder number 5, and I've got about maybe 12 pounds of leak down. I'm holding it at top dead center. Okay, so that looks pretty good to me. Like I said, if I told these guys at the junkyard, I said, if this engine gives me more than 30% leak down, I'm bringing it back. So far so good. Okay, I'm calibrated at 0. Okay, again, this is cylinder number 2. Wow, it's pretty good. I'm at about 8 pounds of pressure. 8 pounds of pressure of leak down. So very good. Next, I think you can see that. That should be at 0 if it's calibrated. Yeah, it looks pretty good to me. Now, I gotta hold the crank or get that cylinder at top dead center. Connect it first. You can hear it leaking. You can hear it leaking because the valves are open. I gotta close the valves by getting this at the cylinder at top dead center. And you only want to go clockwise. Almost there. I hear it quieting down. You put the plugs back in it because the amount of air pressure that's going through here will turn this engine backwards. And you don't want that. There it goes. It's fighting me. Yeah, it's showing about 10. Yeah, about 10 pounds of pressure of leak down. I I can't hold it, so. Whew. Okay, that's good. Another good cylinder. Now on to 6. Put 5 back in. Or I'm sorry, I put 4 back in. And there's a lot of pressure in there. My compressor is set at 100 pounds. So what's coming into this is 100 pounds. Now this may not be exactly the correct way to do this, but this is how I'm doing it to give me peace of mind that this engine still is in good shape. Because I don't want to go through the trouble of putting this motor into the van and then having an issue as soon as I get done with it. I want to be assured that it's a healthy motor, and I think this will do it for me. If all of these fall within the, under 30%, this is a pretty healthy engine at 10. Cylinder number 1 I think was a little higher. Might have been 20. Well, I can recheck that one, but okay. We're still pretty much on 0 there. Okay. Yeah, I can hear it coming out the exhaust valve, but I'm not at top dead either. That's quieting down, so I'm getting close. There she goes. Yeah, about maybe 12 at its peak. Oh boy. Yeah, about 12. Okay. Whew, that was tough. Okay. So that's all good. 12 pounds of leak down on that, on cylinder number 6. Before I touch this engine, I did lubricate all 6 cylinders. Took the spark plugs out, lubricated them. I also filled it up with oil. I put 5W30 in it, Mobile 1. That's just to start up and give it a try when I get it together. I just needed to get oil in it before I did any of this testing. Okay, so I've got the engine out with the help of my neighbor. Thank you very much. I don't think I would have gotten it out without him. And but anyway, I've noticed a couple differences between this, the motor that came out of the van, and the motor that is the donor. Now, I'll probably have to switch out the valve covers because the oil fill is on this side of this motor, and it's on the opposite side over here. And so in order for everything to match up, I'm probably going to have to switch out the intake, at least the top portion of the intake. But what I'm thinking, this is a 2003 motor, and I believe that the intake manifold gaskets on this age, or this year, was also suspect. So I don't want that going on me. So I've ordered some intake manifold, some new Velcro, I guess they're called, intake manifold gaskets. And so I'll be replacing those. And then also the kit came with valve cover gaskets and the plenum, the upper intake manifold spaghetti gaskets. So anyway, also too, I think I got to replace the dipstick. This dipstick, and to switch the dipstick from the original motor over to the donor, because that dipstick isn't going to work. It also bolts on a little differently than this one does. It's a little different bracket assembly, but I think all I gotta do is switch that out if I can get it out of the motor. So without damaging the lower. This is a two-stage dipstick. It's got 2 sections to it, and that one does not. So in order for me to check the oil, I'm gonna have to. You have to do it from up top on the van, way up there by the hood, and. But anyway, you can see this engine is pretty carboned up. This thing had 188,000 when it died, and it looks pretty dirty. And it was just ready to go. I mean, unfortunately, that the piston, I did crack that piston. It was pretty obvious once I got the engine out. Had a nice little crack in it from the screwdriver that I used. But it had 0 compression before I even did that. So that's what prompted me to do the leak down test on it and get that to top dead center. So this engine was already dead before I killed it. Anyway, so what I got to do now is I've got to take, when I pulled it out, this came with it. So this is a torque converter. And I wasn't sure how to actually access the torque converter to leave it in the transmission, but I see how that is done now. These bolts can be accessed by the bottom of the transmission bell. There's a little hole with a little cap on the bell, and I think that's how you'll get to it. Let me take you over to maybe we can see it from in here. Yeah, I took the cap out. You can see that right there. I believe that's where you access those screws to bolt that torque converter to the to the flex plate. But boy, I made a mess too when I pulled it out. That torque converter leaked all over the place. So anyway, don't make those mistakes, and hopefully this will guide someone else, to do the right things. But anyway, stand by. Well, it's a good thing I removed that intake manifold, because this has got a couple of clogged ports too. You can see that one's almost fully plugged. That one's partially plugged. And it's got the same crappy orange shit that was in the other motor. So, just glad I did that. Because I'm going to put some new gaskets in there. And boy, that would have been a problem down the road, I'm sure. So, and these do look like the standard stock crappy intake manifold gaskets that came out of the factory. So at least this engine's never been tampered with. That's one good thing about it. So I'll continue to clean this up and move on. Okay, I got the intake manifold gaskets setting here. I cleaned up both sides, scraped them and wiped them with brake cleaner. I just got to pull out the napkins, and we'll be ready to install the intake manifold. So that's next. Okay. All right, looks like we're lined up. So, okay, so I got the new manifold gaskets in. The intake manifold gaskets are in, and I got new head bolts too. So you can see on each side I've got my silicone squirting out a little bit on each side. I ran it up about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch on each side and front and back of the gaskets. So we should have a good seal. Just got to torque them down. The instructions tell me 50 inch-pounds to start with, then 100, then 132 right there. 50, 100, 132. All right, that's next. Okay, so my pattern that I'm going to bolt these down at 30 foot-pounds is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, then 5, 6, and then 7, 8. That should be it. So, okay, that's next. Okay, just to give an update on where I'm at right now, I just removed the rear main seal from the motor, and got to see where I put it. I wanted to show it to you. This is the new one, and it's BS40656. It's the same seal, but the only difference is on the 2007 motor, it came with a different part number. And on the 2003, of course, it came with this 40656. I think the other one was like a 707 or something like that. But I didn't make any comparisons. I just got the proper seal for the proper motor. Now, if I ever sell this van and they ever have a leak, I'll have to let them know that the rear main seals will be different. Based on that year of that van, they won't get the right seal. But, you know, looking at the differences in size, they look almost identical. They're just off by, you know, the part number. But, boy, I wouldn't want to put the wrong seal in it. So, anyway, that's where I'm at. And also, too, I replaced the valve cover gaskets. I cleaned up the valve covers. I had to swap the valve covers. The original, this one was over here, and then this one was over here, and I had to do a 180-degree swap, turnaround, and then it made it more like the 2007 motor for the dipstick location and the oil fill. The oil fill location. But anyway, that's where we're at now. I've got some blue Loctite for the bolts that I'm going to be replacing when I put the flex plate back in. I'm going to put the seal back in, and we'll go from there. Okay, I got the rear main seal in. I had to use I used some electrolytic grease after I cleaned it on the race inside, and then I put some of this redhead gasket sealant material here. This is it. What do they call this stuff? Permatex gasket shellac. Oh, I thought it was called redhead or something, but this works. And I just put it around the perimeter of the rear main seal, and I pounded it in. Yeah, the package said it came with an installation tool, but if this is the installation tool, that certainly wasn't going to work. No way. I didn't see that's just garbage. That ain't gonna work. So in order to get that in flush to the housing, I had to use this and kind of hammer it in gently all the way around. So that seemed to work okay. So I think she sealed up pretty good. Now I'm just gonna throw the flex plate back on it, put some Loctite, blue Loctite on these bolts after I clean them, and reinstall the flex plate. Okay, and the flex plate you can see is dished. It's dished out here. This is the outer side here, like this. And it's got a dowel rod. I believe this was it here, or no, here. And it's got to match up with this here, this dowel. So once that's installed, and I do have a mark on here to the block that indicated that is correct, just for my own edification. So I'm going to need both hands to do this, so see you in a few. Okay, here's the rear main seal I was looking for. I pulled it out using a screwdriver. There was a couple of little tabs on each side, actually 3 of them, but I was only able to access these 2. But I did damage it trying to pull it out, but that's no matter. I did want to get it out of there, and I did want to show you what it looked like. So I mean, it's just a cup seal and keeps the oil in, but yeah, I had to pry it out of there, and it was in there pretty well. So anyway, I just wanted to show you the old one, that it actually did come out of there, and the kind of damage you got to do to get it out. But anyway, I also wanted to show you that there's a instruction that came with this engine, and it's right here. And in order for you to get the limited warranty, it has an installation procedure, which doesn't really tell you a whole lot, but it has a list of things that you're supposed to do on the back here. And I thought, man, yeah, most of these things I did do. Drain and replace the engine oil, did that. Replace air filter, well, I'll do that. The oil filter has been replaced. Replace valve cover gaskets, I did that. Clean the oil sump, screen and pickup tube. I pulled the pan off, the oil pan off, and I did put new seals and clean that thoroughly. The sump looked clean, or I mean the pickup tube looked clean, so I didn't have to do much with that. But I did go through those gyrations. It says replace the pan gasket. I did that. Rear main seal. That's what I just showed you. And inspect and replace if needed timing chain or belts and gaskets. Well, I'm not going to do that. This timing chain is an interference timing chain, or a non-interference timing chain, and it's supposed to be good for the life of this engine. So I'm not going to even mess with that. I did get a new thermostat and gasket. It says flush the cooling system and refill with antifreeze to appropriate level. That makes sense. Install new spark plugs and wires, which I will do. Install new belts and hoses. Verify engine timing before installation. Well, of course, that's all pretty common stuff. The only thing I didn't do is the timing chain. I think that is completely unnecessary. If this engine runs and it runs well, it shouldn't need a new timing chain. At 71,000 miles, it should. I would hope not. Anyway, I just wanted to show you the criteria that was needed according to the Junkyard. This is Highway Auto Parts is where I got this from on Groesbeck Avenue in Warren. So I think it's Warren. But anyway, they seem to be good fellas there, and I think they did me okay. I told them that if this engine doesn't check out well, I'll bring it back. But so far, so good. Everything looks like it's a very sound engine so far. So leak down test shows well. Maybe when I get it installed, maybe I'll do a compression check on each cylinder just to be safe and see what it is. But I don't know if I'll go that far. If it runs, I think I'll be happy with that. But we'll see what happens. Well, I got the engine in finally. I didn't show all the details, but I got it in. I'm starting to get it hooked back up. Again, this came out of a Silverado, a 2003. And what I discovered when I got the engine in there is that everything looked identical, even right down to the motor mounts. But the funny thing is, the motor mounts were not the same. So I really struggled with getting the engine to line up and the transmission to mate to the engine. But once I discovered that the engine mounts were actually different, they're just off a little bit. This is the motor mount that actually came off the Silverado, off that motor. But the bolt holes and actually the bracket here, this is just got different dimensions than the ones that are down there. And so I hope this gives somebody a clue that if they're swapping engines, they better know that the motor mounts are going to be right. They looked right. I mean, they've got the same contour. It's got this like hill that rises up. You know, it's got the same bolt pattern, but they're just off by maybe half of an inch to where it shifted on the bracket on the actual block. So the other motor mount may be off like half an inch one way or the other. But once I pulled the motor mount off the original engine, I was able to pull that off and just put them on. I just jacked the engine back up and got under there and took them off and took these off and put the right ones on, and it lined up pretty well after that. So anyway, now I'm going to go after the intake manifold just to make sure that I got to bolt that back down, the plenum, the plastic portion back in there, and get the throttle body back on, and after that, you know, maybe I can get the front clip back on and get, you know, the alternator back on, the air conditioning, power steering, and all that crap, and still got some work to do. Okay, I've got everything in, almost, except maybe for the shroud that covers, you know, the fan. But I want to see if there's any leaks. I'm going to start it up, and I've got the fluid in. I've got, you know, all my fluids are up. I've checked them all. I'm going to try and start it and see what happens, so you'll see what I see when I start it up. Before I do, I want to mention that the reason I replaced this motor is because I had a P0301 error code, and that made me suspect that I had an engine miss. And well, initially what happened is I had a crank no start condition, and then when I did go to start it, it backfired very badly, and then it ran really bad. So, you know, it still had the P0301 error code, but it wasn't, that was the only error that I was getting. So I decided to take a look at the spark plugs, the wires, all of that. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary or out of whack. So I decided I'm going to do a compression check. So I did, and I ended up getting 0 compression on number 1 cylinder. The adjacent cylinder, like I had on the other 3 cylinders, I was getting like 160. And then I checked it again on cylinder 1, I got 70. So I had very low compression on cylinder number 1. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to do a leak down test. And I had to get it up to top dead center. Now, this is the part I would recommend not doing. Never, ever, ever use a screwdriver to find top dead center on these types of engines, these V6s, because the pistons do not come straight up and down. They kind of go horizontal, and this can result. This is what happened to my screwdriver. And if this cylinder wasn't dead already, I certainly did kill it, and you've probably seen that in the previous part of this video, where it really destroyed that piston. But I know this engine was already having problems, so I had to end up replacing this engine anyway. Well, enough said. Let's see if this thing will start. We'll give it a try. I haven't done anything with this trying to start it yet, and I'm going to be kind of shocked and surprised if it does, and we'll check for leaks. Oh, I see, I know. Yeah, the coil plug is not connected. That's why it won't start. Let's see here. At least I know it won't start without that. Okay, let's try again. Wants to. I'm not sure why it won't. Well, unless I have my timing off on my top dead center, because that could be that the rotor is not exactly correct. That's the only thing I can think that's why this is not starting. She sounds like she wants to, but all right, I'll have to check my timing again, and we'll find out. What I did is I took off the distributor cap, and I turned the crank on the engine 180 degrees from where the distributor cap was resting, because I think the timing was just off 180 degrees. I was afraid to try to get top dead center with a screwdriver again, so I had it off. So I had to just rotate the engine and then reset the distributor cap again. So let's see, the whole distributor had to be reconfigured there. So I didn't show it on video, but let's try it and see what we get. That don't sound so good. That could be an exhaust leak. Let me see. That could be hitting something plastic out on the front too. I don't have everything nailed down here. Yeah, this doesn't sound good. Yeah, I think it's hitting this shroud. I don't have this down all the way. It's hitting something. Maybe it's hitting this. I don't have everything. I wanted to run it so that I don't have any leaks. I wanted to see if I had any leaks. Yeah, it's hitting. That's what it's hitting right here. It's hitting there. Yeah, that's not in position yet, but what I'll do, I'll start it up and then I'll lift that up again. Just want to run it for a while. But at least it started. I'm very happy as hell about that. Whoa, yeah, did you see that? I don't have this on either. So, okay. This is just preliminary. I wanted to see if it would run. And let's see. I'm getting there. Yeah, that's exciting. It's about to rain too, so I want to get this thing going. That sounds a little better. I think that fan is still hitting. Might be hitting the plastic down there too. But hey, it's running. Now I just got to button everything up. I want to check. Well, what do you know? It's running. It sounds like it might be hitting that fan on that plastic. I don't know. It could be my power steering too is low. I filled everything, but it probably needs more. So, okay, I'll get back. One thing I wanted to show you guys is when I married this transmission up to the engine, you can see the witness mark where the actual yoke went into the transmission. It was about here. It's rusted a little bit since it's been sitting in the driveway, but it was pretty much way back here. Now, according to the internet and what I've read, the yoke is supposed to be at least 2 inches into the tail housing of the transmission. That and that would be at its furthest distance out when it's like when the car's inclined or the van's up on a hill, and this is supposed to move in and out. So at its furthest distance, you're supposed to have at least 2 inches in. Now I think this is 7 inches long, so that would put me back here probably somewhere. But I've also seen that I didn't take this yoke out to measure it, but I'm assuming that, you know, that little bit of free play isn't going to be too big of a deal. So we'll see. But I just wanted to show you that just as a point of interest. I just want to check for leaks. On the oil pan, I changed the oil pan gasket out. I might have a little seepage from that power steering pump. I had to clean that off. That was pretty gunked up. I didn't change the power steering pump, but all looks pretty dry. Pretty happy with that. I did use the existing exhaust manifold gaskets. Might be getting a slight leak there. I'm seeing some steam come off, but if I have to replace them, I'll get back into it and do that. But of course, it's the starter. I don't see it seeping around the starter. It looks pretty good. All right. Okay, well, I'm done here.